Good morning. Well, afternoon, really. I had I had some stuff I had to take care of this morning, some errands I had to run, family issues mostly, actually. So I wasn't able to stream this morning, but I wanted to pop in and, say hello before the Christmas week started. Um, Also, I thought maybe we could do something a little different than usual today, since it's Friday. I don't know, Game Design Friday or something. Who knows? I have no idea what to call it. Nor I guess it really matters. Um, Basically, the other day, I talked a little bit about the Ivory Tower and what we're doing with that, um, and our plans moving forward with that book, so on and so forth. And I guess what I was thinking is that I could go over some of the plans we have for that book, and more importantly, I guess I could go over a specific power I've been thinking of redesigning for quite a bit that I think would actually be a good fit for that book. Don't mind me touching my hair; it's a constant problem of mine. Um, Vanity. What can you do? Uh, Try not to stare at myself the whole time I'm on stream, but here it is what it is. I got to keep track of the chat. It's just one of the things you do when you're streaming, I guess. Um, so, nonetheless, there's a power in V5 Core. I think it's been rewritten 2 or 3 times now. I think it was even rewritten in the Companion, and maybe even in the Vampires Player's Guide. I know a lot of people have taken a crack at rewriting this thing. It's called Lingering Kiss. I believe it's a level 2 presence power, and there aren't a lot of really good level 2 presence powers. There are several really good level 1 presence powers. Um, Both On Daunt are very good for level 1. Some of the better level 1 powers there are out there, not just in presence. But the level 2, not so great. I kind of saw that weak spot myself. It's one of the reasons why in the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, there are actually 2 level 2 presence powers that you can take. Because I just saw that Lingering Kiss was a bit muddled. Didn't really seem to do what it wanted to do. Um, and the rewrites didn't really seem to hit what they wanted them to do either. So that's one of the reasons that I put Bring It On, the like come get me, come at me presence power in the Black Hand playing the Sabbat. Um, I've actually used presence that way myself in games, so I thought a power that kind of leaned into that, make me the target. This kind of taunt power was very useful, and of course, Predator's Lure, the kind of like point to point summon, where you can just kind of like come near at a person who's in close range, and they kind of almost sirens call, come to you without really knowing what they're doing, almost like they're hypnotized or following an imperceptible smell. I think is the way it's described. Um, so that just seem powers of interest that filled that gap. So I've taken a crack at that power recently. I didn't really spend a lot of time doing it, um, but I decided to just tinker with it. I said, I think in some message board or Discord, it was a Discord. I think it was maybe the unofficial WAD Discord I'm in, or whatever. But I was in a Discord, and the power was mentioned or some such, and it came to me that, oh, maybe I'll take a crack at it and put a rework of that in the Ivory Tower playing the Camarilla. So the other day, when I should have probably doing some other work, you know how it is, I decided, hey, why don't I waste some time working on this level 2 presence power that already exists, and reworking it for like the 80th time. So let's do that. Let's look at that. Here we go. All right. So as you can see, I am in Google Docs. I like Google Docs. It's nice and easy. I can use it anywhere. I can open up my phone and edit Google Docs, which I do all the time. Not great for editing or really doing the hard lifting, but it is good when you have the attention issues I have, I guess. Who knows? Or the anxiety issues I have. So sometimes standing around in a line is the best time to write for an RPG. I've written whole chapters on my phone. I prefer to use a keyboard rather than my thumbs. Even if I'm using my phone, I actually have a keyboard that syncs with my phone very nicely. So if I'm like sitting on the couch or whatever, I'll just use that. And sometimes I'll use my laptop, but not always. I don't know why my phone feels nicer. Maybe I just like the keyboard better that I have for my phone than I do for my laptop. My laptop keyboard kind of sucks, actually. I don't really like it. I have a Chromebook, and the Chromebook itself is chill, but its keyboard not so great. So I'm getting a little reflection in my glasses, but that's okay. I don't have any secrets. At least not on any of these screens. Those are buried deeper in the computer. So let's take a look at what I've written here for Lingering Kiss. Hopefully this is legible. Here, maybe I can make it a little bigger. All right, so I think that should be pretty legible. It is what it is. So, hey, what's up, Gord? How you doing? Yeah, I'm just talking about, I thought I'd do something a little different today than the usual. So I was actually talking about Lingering Kiss and some rewrites I'm doing of that power that I'll probably include in the Ivory Tower, playing the Camarilla. So as I was saying, this power has gone through a lot of rewrites. I've seen way more than 3 versions of this, but yes, I think published officially, there are at least 3 versions of this power. I know that during the initial rewrite of this power in the V5 core book, where a lot of things were kind of changed, I don't really think even necessarily, I should say, I don't think some things in the V5 core book were changed in a way that was necessary. I know the predator, not the predator type. I know the vegan flaw was renamed farmer for some reason, and I understand why that was done, but I don't really think that was really necessary or needed to be done. I think a lot of the changes from the initial V5 core book weren't 100% necessary. Maybe there were some sensitivity issues here and there. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking of it from a independent creator. For the changes that were made, it would be inconceivable for me to reprint a whole book and change a whole book just based on the few changes that were made. Well, I don't know if that early Modiphius errata was slapped together, really. I think what it really was is that it was such a huge task, and I don't think they had the resources for a company their size. Because Modiphius, I think people think it's like this really huge company because of its outsized kind of influence and the really good product they put out. I mean, I remember when Modiphius first came out on the scene, people were really just blown away. I think them and Free League were basically just putting stuff out that was just like at a much higher level of production quality as far as the books were concerned than anything else out there. And now, today, that kind of standard we expect in role-playing games, especially Vampire and World of Darkness role-playing games, um, was really kind of set by them back then in the early days. Like the quality that you get from like a Renegade book or a lot of other companies, it just wasn't like that. Like you just kind of have to go back to some of the earlier, well, not really WAD, but if you could go back to see what books were like in the I'd say mid 2000s, it was pretty slapdash all over. Like the quality ranged from all over, and now I feel like that kind of Modifius free league level of production quality is what people expect, which can be a bit difficult for some people to think. So I think that was the main issue, is that Modifius just didn't really have the resources um, on that end of things to take on such a huge task of errataing, making the errata and modifying that book. Um, I was aware of that process because I was working very closely with Modifius at that point in time. Because really, this was a time when people were kind of like, no one wanted to like kind of touch Vampire the Masquerade, the brand, on some level. It was kind of radioactive. So it was kind of a glass cliff situation for me in a way, in that I was willing to take the risks, to be associated with the brand and Vampire the Masquerade at that time. I felt that I could, make changes, particularly in this Camarilla book, that would be of use and of interest, and that I wouldn't make, amateurish mistakes or stumble into something silly. And that I wouldn't accept, basically being blamed for things that I didn't do. I wasn't going to get thrown under the bus. So I felt that I could do that, and as I said, it was kind of a glass cliff situation where basically I was kind of being asked to fix things that were seen as too hot to touch, and nobody else wanted to do it. And of course, in a classic glass cliffs fashion, once everything kind of is fixed and is back together and everything's rolling again, then suddenly the usual people like stand up to take their slice, as it were. Not to say that I was sidelined in any way, but I don't think I would have been given the opportunities I had for V5 writing, like the really kind of high profile writing jobs I got in that time in V5, if not for the fact that a lot of other authors simply didn't want to work on V5. Ones people who had worked on the core book and who had worked on World of Darkness in the past. Clearly did not want to touch the brand after it blew up with what for some of the writing in the core book and some of the writing in the Camarilla book, and even some of the writing in the Anarch book. But that's a whole other story. Like I think there's like a story in the Anarch book about like feeding a baby blood or something like that, and I guess that caused a lot of Saurus and all that, and I thought most of the stuff in the Anarch book was pretty good. I mean, I don't think there was a lot to game with there, but flavor-wise, it was very interesting. And as a parent, I have definitely seen very weird questions get asked in a parent chat. So the idea that a vampire or whatever, like a thin blood, might be like, hey, can I feed my baby blood? Is that okay? Like, because maybe they know a little bit about ghouling and how it makes you tough and immune and all that. So maybe they're thinking, oh, can it heal them if they're sick or something? So I can understand that. It's kind of interesting thought process and an interesting thing to put in a book. Yeah, I don't think it was offensive. As a parent, I didn't find it offensive. I thought it was kind of real and vulnerable. Something people could explore. I think just because of the fact that it was discussing a baby in the same context as vampirism and all that, that gave people the ick, which is understandable. Some people, when they think of vampire, it has very, I guess, sexual connotations to it. And perhaps that's why having it in the context of a baby being spoken of in the same paragraph as vampirism was off-putting for them. So on some level, I can understand it. But vampirism, being a vampire, feeding people blood, all that, these are metaphors for all kinds of different things, not just that. Yeah, the mommy blogger page, exactly, Gord. Yeah, there is some stuff in Anarch that was removed that probably didn't need to be. Same with the V5 core book. There was stuff that changed around that probably didn't really need to be. I'd say the only thing that really needed to be changed was the stuff in the Camarilla book. Um, I actually offered to kind of rewrite those sections. Well, I didn't actually offer to rewrite those sections. I was asked to be part of this editorial board that they put together. I don't actually remember who else was on the editorial board. We didn't work together. We independently reviewed all three books, and we basically sent them our suggestions about what could be changed and how it could be changed, and what and kind of what priorities were. And it was really, for me, I really spent a lot of time highlighting the Gehenna War section in the Camarilla book, and I guess a lot of other people did, for various issues. And one or two things in the V5 core book, but I didn't really find them too inflammatory or too much of an issue. I honestly don't remember a lot in the Anarch book. I think I highlighted one or two things in the Victoria Ash passages in the Anarch book, because she makes allusions to the different kinds of lovers she's had, and kind of breaks them down by like clan. And I think I don't know if this is how it still appears. Or perhaps this was in an early draft. I don't know. I don't know if this actually ever made page or light. But she basically alludes to the fact that Banu Hakim are like, super jealous stalkers who like murder her other beaux. And it kind of had a kind of a connotation that it was because of their religious faith that they were like that, or perhaps because of their blood. So that was kind of problematic because it hit upon, kind of pretty classic tropes, I guess. I don't know. I don't really like to use the word tropes in this context. But it really hit upon kind of classic bigoted thoughts about Arabs, Muslims, basically being hypersexualized and being super jealous and being very toxic men, in a sense, when it comes to their sexual and romantic partners. So I highlighted that. I don't actually remember if it was changed or if it made it in the book. I don't actually recall. Perhaps it is, or is not. I'll have to re-look through all the Victoria Ash kind of little texts that are in that book. I think they're mostly like end notes or beginning notes to chapters or sections. But yeah, it was really the Gehenna War section that I felt had a lot of problematic stuff. Also, it had a major kind of editing flaw. I don't know how it got through, but literally the timestamps on each section are completely wrong. They're the protagonist like goes backwards in time. It looks like it was just somebody effed up how the dates appeared. Maybe they mixed up certain dates. I don't know. But they are, in the story, clearly progressing. They're clearly moving forward. It wasn't intended to be kind of this reverse timeline. But the timelines, the date stamps themselves are all wrong and scattered. They go backward and forward and all that. While the story itself is obviously progressing forward. Like, they're referring to things they'd done in the past, though technically by the timeline they hadn't done that stuff yet. But anyway, that's neither here. That's just like a quibble of mine as someone who's very detail oriented and a little anal. But that wasn't the main issue with that section. There were several issues with that section. Okay, yeah. So that was it. Yes, about that. I guess I can't talk about it too specifically. Technically, I don't even know. I guess technically the company I signed an NDA with doesn't exist anymore in some sense. But I think I'll take a look at the quote, but I think they may have toned it down then, because that sounds a little different than kind of the way I remember it. So, killed another lover in a duel sounds maybe a little more innocuous than the way it was originally presented. I mean, a lot of these issues, I think because Vampire the Masquerade, World of Darkness is so high profile in a sense, I think there wasn't a lot of trust or confidence in the initial team, simply because the kind of like marketing and social media presence was a little abrasive. And of course, this is a brand, this is an IP that I feel is very American coded to many Americans. Like they feel this is like an American RPG. So the fact that it was kind of bought by a foreign kind of Swedish um, uh, by a Swedish company, and that all the principals were very not American, did not have American sensibilities, and clearly didn't know how to interact or engage with a American audience in a way that the audience found comfortable. I think that kind of heightened things as well. And so there wasn't a lot of generosity on the part of the audience, I think, when things came out. And I think things that were just minor mistakes that were kind of, as I said, what I would call amateur mistakes, either in writing or in editing. And I don't mean to say amateur in a pejorative sense. I'm an amateur in a lot of things I like to do. That's just a fact, and I still do them. And I just, own up to my mistakes and move on and improve. And I talk to people who, are professionals and do these things better than I do. And I learn and I get better, and that's fine. And I don't think being an amateur means you shouldn't work on World of Darkness or Vampire the Masquerade. I think it's just a matter of knowing your limitations and accepting them when they're pointed out to you, really, um, and moving forward. And of course, so I feel that those mistakes were really kind of just blew up in a way that they probably wouldn't have without some of those other factors being there. Um, who knows? And of course, I recommended that the Chechnya section actually be rewritten. It ended up being removed whole cloth, which I don't think was the best move personally. I understand why they did that. Perhaps that was seen as like the safest move. I don't know. I wasn't given the exact specific reasons why it was removed. I think personally it should have been rewritten. I think there is subject matter in there. I think that there are sensitive things in there, for sure. But I think that a either talented writer or a skilled writer and a good editor, the most important thing, obviously, to be honest, when it comes to these sensitive issues, it's really about the editor, actually, more than the writer. Like, the writer can write all the right words, but if the editor takes out the wrong context or frames things in a different way, or even puts paragraphs, like removes a paragraph or a line, or even lays out the thing in a strange way, though technically, a company like White Wolf, I'm sure would have had a different layout design person than the editor. But nonetheless, that can, twist, churn what you're trying to say in different ways. Even a perspective shift, like from third person to first person, kind of that inside out, or who's talking, if that's not clarified or cleared or changed, it can change the complete context of things in ways you weren't expecting or didn't want. And that can drive outrage, of course. Which, coupled with edition war stuff, it can be a big problem. But I felt that Chechnya section could have been rewritten in a way that it would have been tasteful and informative and interesting, because that actually is subject matter that I feel games should talk about. I think games should talk about, especially games set in the quote unquote modern world, in the world we live in, as the World of Darkness is. I feel it should talk about real horrors that are happening and real atrocities that are happening. I don't think we should shy away from that stuff. I think we should be clear about who the monsters are in those situations, that it's the people who are doing the monstrous things. They're not being made to do monstrous things by, vampires or fairies or some such. Like, we shouldn't excuse real world predators and war criminals with the idea that they're like a ghoul or something, all right, or a werewolf threatened them, or mages made it that way. That shouldn't be done, clearly. But I do think it would have been good, in many different senses, if the kind of persecution of homosexuals and other people in Chechnya, Russia, other places, I guess, at that time, I don't know, Poland and a few other places, would have been highlighted. I think that would have been interesting and good for people to be made aware of those issues, even if it is in the context of a game. It's just a matter of you can't cross over the line into exploiting those things for titillation, of exploiting those things to basically get clicks or views or for someone to buy the book because it's so titillating and scandalous and all that, right? Like, that's not what you want to do, clearly. So I think it should have been rewritten. It was removed, and so there you go. I did, I believe, rewrite. Mostly it was just the Gehenna War section. There were a couple of other things maybe, but I don't remember them off the top of my head. I think most of the rules changes weren't really necessary. Lingering Kiss, I know, was changed in that first pass. And I think the main issue, as I heard it, is some people were really concerned with like the game mechanic balance issue of, what if someone who's unbondable or something uses this power on people all the time because they drink their blood and they don't have to get blood bond, the drawback of the power in a sense, right? That to me is really, pointless, okay? Because the way blood bonding works, the way feeding off other vampires works in V5 is nowhere near as onerous or a problem as it is in other editions of Vampire. Like, the way drinking other vampires' blood in V5 is... sorry to hear you lost power, Gord. That sucks. Hope everything's okay there. But yeah, the way that is framed as, I guess, a problematic in V5 is not as difficult as it was in the past. Like, drinking the blood of another vampire in earlier editions was much more consequential. The way the blood bond worked, the mechanics of escaping a blood bond. In some senses, I guess that was one of the real powers of the Sabbat. The Vaulderie breaking blood bonds was such a huge deal in older editions, particularly because the blood bond was seen as so inescapable in older editions, and in some cases mechanically it was pretty inescapable. And its power over you was almost absolute, and more importantly, the way you got blood bond in the past was pretty quick. Like, I think it's 3 sips over the course of 3 separate nights. Very Dracula coded, of course. So very thematic and interesting, but also really easy to do. Especially when they're like Tremere rituals, like vessel transference, stuff like that let you like basically booby trap objects with your blood and the such. So it could become very easy to surreptitiously blood bond someone. So that's not as big of an issue in V5. Right. So changing Lingering Kiss to account for unbindable drives me super unnecessary. I felt like a change maybe for LARPs or for play-by-post online games. Right. It was not necessary. Like in my version of Lingering Kiss, which I'll go over, I got about a half hour, a little more, before I have to go to run another errand that kind of Friday, I guess. I didn't care about that. It really does not matter. I make mention of unbondable and bond resistant in the power, but in a completely different context. So I'm actually of the opinion that there's no reason to basically caveat powers if there's some minor mechanical advantage or loophole. This is V5. This isn't BattleTech or something where kind of every armor dot matters and how much armor you have on your right arm versus your left arm matters and where you've put your LRM-20 ammo within your slots matter. That's not really what V5's about, I guess. That's not really the heart and soul of the game. So kind of having to put all these different caveats in a power, it's like, oh, well, if you discovered this little loophole, so did we, haha, so you can't do that now because we say so for some reason. So yeah, that was pointless. There was no point in that. What I will say is that what the power was trying to achieve. Okay, so the power was trying to achieve, okay, how do we empower the kiss, which is a very interesting concept within Vampire the Masquerade, that, biting someone causes this, like, ecstasy. It's why you can get away with biting people all the time as a vampire. And, why don't people know about it, right? Because not every vampire has dominate. Not every vampire is smart about licking the wounds and healing the bite and all that, right? So why aren't people being reporting all these, like, bites all the time, all throughout history? Well, it's because the bite itself is pleasurable, like very pleasurable. And that usually the longer and deeper the, drink, as it were, the more pleasurable it is. At least that's how it is portrayed. Now, there are no real mechanics for a bite in a real sense. I feel there's some wording about, like, how some mortals can resist it and, like, willpower and all that. But for the most part, if you're a mortal and you get bitten by a vampire, you are basically going to be in the throes of pleasure. And they're going to, until they stop biting you, until they let you go. And even afterwards, you may, like, ache for it in a sense. And that tracks. It's supposed to be kind of almost a metaphor for, like, a drug or a sexual encounter or that kind of thing. So that it is pleasurable, but it is also kind of forbidden or profane or transgressive. So you have that. You have the kiss. And this is supposed to be a power that makes your kiss even more addictive. And, like, makes the person, like, high. Almost like a steroid or PCP or something like that. It's not like a barbiturate high. It's literally they get, like, charged up. And they're ready to go. So it gets them high. It empowers them. And then after the high, there's a withdrawal period where they're kind of fucked up. They're not doing so hot, and they're just itching. They're jonesing for that high again, and specifically for you to bite them if they can get it. And so they are almost, by their own accord, they're basically being drawn to you because they want the high again. So it's a way to not only, like, empower a servant, or a nearby mortal for what you need, or even another vampire, actually. But it's also a way to kind of have a, like, back pocket, plan B kind of herd, right? You've got these mortals who you've kissed here and there, and maybe they'll cause you some, embarrassing moments here and there if they, like, confront you in a club or whatever. But they're also easier to feed on because they know what it means to be bitten by you. So we don't have to worry about too much about the flavor text. It's basically just kind of a rewording of the original, because one of the parts of keeping the original theme of the power is I don't really want to change the, like, fluff text too much. I made it shorter and less kind of, like, flowery, but that's about it. So let's see here. So it's either free or one rouse check is the cost. No innate die pools, and the duration varies, okay? And here we go. The system. The vampire can choose to use this power when biting a victim and inflicting the ecstasy of the kiss upon them, even if they slake no hunger. So right away, I remove the requirement for feeding from the power. Basically saying that the kiss is when this power is invoked, the kiss comes from the bite, not necessarily from the feeding. I feel that gets around some of the issues around this power that some people seem to have, and the tendency to game balance it. And the idea that you basically have to take some blood out of the person, This usually requires the vampire to sink their fangs into a victim's flesh with care over the course of a scene, and the vampire may need to make a hunger frenzy check to resist feeding. So you don't have to feed off of them, but of course, literally biting someone who is full of delicious blood, if you have any hunger, you probably will have to make a hunger check to resist feeding, because you're right there, right? So that might be, so it actually might be difficult to not feed, but you don't have to activate the power. And I don't make any considerations about when the kiss is activated in your game. So if in your game the kiss only happens usually when there's feeding, that's fine. You can still do that. I feel there's a little ambiguity there in the most part. I do believe that in most considerations, the kiss does come from the actual process of draining blood. So perhaps in my games, I would keep it that way. I wouldn't just make it about the bite. But as far as this power is concerned, they basically hit you with the kiss just by biting you. There's a chance you might have to hunger frenzy check if you refuse to feed while biting, and then the bonuses. So I like to reuse rules that already exist, and I like to, so that it makes things easier. If things are a little modular, right? So we already have rules in place for, the power someone has over you from vampire blood. We've got the blood bond, okay? And I feel the blood bond, as I said, is a lot weaker than how it has been in earlier editions. So we can just say the power inflicts a blood bond on people, level 1 blood bond, okay? Now, it's not a true blood bond, as I'll get into later. It's more of a kind of I think that the wording I use is supernatural facsimile of a blood bond, okay? So it's not the actual bonding of the blood, but it kind of recreates the psychological and supernatural aspects of the blood bond, but it is much easier to get rid of this, false blood bond than it is a usual one. And it's a lot harder to, not harder, but to increase this blood bond, you would basically have to, bite the shit out of people with this power repeatedly over, several nights. So, in any case, and I can relook at the wording, but the intention is that this power basically is something you're only going to use on someone once per night. I'll see. Maybe I didn't actually put that in the power, but I'll see. But I would make those caveats and all that. Maybe that'll make this power even longer. It's really a really long goddamn power because it does a lot. It kind of does too much. But I wanted to keep the heart of the power as it was intended. So, there it is. So, after being bitten, the victim gains a level 1 blood bond and a +2 thirst die bonus to all rolls for the rest of the night. See thirst dice. We'll get to that later. These thirst dice replace hunger dice on a 1-per-1 basis, but are added to the victim's roll even if they have 1 or fewer hunger dice. So these are bonus dice that will replace hunger dice. But even if you don't have 2 hunger, you are going to get these thirst dice. So if you have 1 hunger, let's say, that hunger die is going to turn into a thirst die, and you're going to get a bonus thirst die on your die pool over the top on that. Okay? This benefit cannot stack with dice gained from rousing the blood or other powers that grant thirst dice. All right? So you can't... So these bonus dice you're going to get for quite a while because it lasts till the end of the night. So biting someone again with this power would technically grant no benefit. So there's really no point in biting someone with another power. But I will re-look at the wording to see if, lingering kissing someone 2 or 3 times in one night perhaps breaks it a little bit on a mechanical level, but that's not its intention. But it's possible that it's worded in a way that someone could exploit, I guess. But I don't know if you'd want to do that. So obviously you can't stack the thirst dice this grants with repeated lingering kiss bites, and other powers that grant thirst dice, which there are. Thirst dice is a mechanic that I already have in the Ivory Tower playing the Sabat, playing the Camarilla, and I will detail that in a little bit. Basically, long story short, thirst dice are basically just hunger dice that kind of steal a beat from rage dice from Werewolf the Apocalypse, where basically you roll hunger dice, and if a bestial failure comes up, in certain circumstances, basically when you're trying to feed or break shit or do something like vampiric or animalistic, in certain circumstances that 1 is treated as a 10. All right, so it basically increases your chances for messy criticals, and decreases your chances for a bestial failure. Well, actually, it doesn't really decrease your chance for a bestial failure. Actually, your bestial failure chance remains the same, really, or just about the same. But your chance for a messy critical is increased, and if you have a lot of thirst dice or a lot of hunger, then they're increased, pretty significantly. It's not. I won't think it is game breaking in any way, nor is it a huge boost. Really, the boost is that you're getting 2 extra dice. Like, that is the boost. You get 2 extra dice on all rolls for the rest of the night. Okay, that's a pretty huge boost. In exchange, you're getting a level 1 blood bond, and you're gonna have to pay for it later, right? You're gonna get the back end, the withdrawal symptoms. All right. So the following night, the bonus thirst dice fade, the blood bond remains, and the withdrawal sets in. All the victim's actions not spent working toward acquiring a new fix or seeking out the vampire that bit them receive a -2 die penalty. So there's the withdrawal. It's basically just like addiction, the flaw. It just gives you the -2 die penalty flat out. You've lost the bonus. So a victim withdrawal can rouse their blood if they're a vampire or ghoul, or spend 1 willpower to ignore this penalty for a scene. So it's not going to cripple you for the rest of the night. There are ways around it. This withdrawal period can be cut short if the victim finds other powerful substances or ecstatic behaviors to ease their cravings, often forming a new addiction, or they spend a number of willpower equal to the vampire's presence rating, resisting the penalty. All right, so as we're about to see, this withdrawal basically lasts a number of nights after you're bit, equal to the vampire who bit you's presence rating. So if they've only got a level 2 presence, like the bare minimum to have this power, you're going to have that +2 bonus for 1 night, and then you're going to have withdrawal for the next 2 nights. Okay? So you can either tough it out those next 2 nights, or every time you're called to make a test or whatever, you can blow willpower. And if that first night of withdrawal, you blow 2 or more willpower to counteract the penalty, the withdrawal ends. You're no longer affected by the withdrawal. All right, so it's kind of it's only when someone is operating at like presence 4 or 5, where the withdrawal is going to last like almost a week, and you're going to have to blow through 4 or 5 dots of willpower to get rid of it, that you're really probably going to be suffering through that withdrawal penalty, and it's going to hurt. And I think it makes for interesting role play, because basically you're going to have people going, well, I don't want that guy to bite me again. I don't want him to drink my blood again. I don't want to be near him for whatever reasons, perhaps. Usually vampires who are using a power like Lingering Kiss might be pretty, it could be a situation they could exploit pretty easily. And perhaps that's why they like that power. Making these kind of psychologically, supernaturally addicted thralls, in a sense. That takes a certain kind of personality to really lean into that aspect of being a vampire by investing into a level 2 power that's all about that. So perhaps you don't want to be around that guy. Perhaps you don't want to fix your Jones by being bit again. So it also has a way out, not just of resisting and using willpower and rousing your blood to resist the penalties. You can also, look for a different kind of high to ease the pain and ease the penalty. Perhaps you're going to be like, oh, what if I take, ketamine in a huge dose, or heroin, or whatever, or perhaps I will jump off a building, or like chase some kind of daredevil high. So there's a lot of different like role playing aspects that could basically be used, where you're just trying to avoid the person who bit you and mitigate the withdrawal aspects of the power. Okay, so otherwise, after a number of nights equal to the user's presence rating, the withdrawal symptom and one level of the blood bond subside until the victim is bitten again by the same vampire again, and the cycle of empowerment and withdrawal starts all over again. All right, so that level 1 blood bond, it reduces once the time period is over. It's not connected to the withdrawal, but in a simple scenario where you're bitten by a vampire and you're going to go through withdrawal for 2 nights, that level 1 blood bond is also going to disappear when the withdrawal disappears. But they actually aren't connected. Well, that's not entirely true. If the withdrawal leaves, then one level of your blood bond also leaves. But the blood bond, if it's higher, which we'll get into how that happens, will linger. And I would say that this blood bond rating, I'd say the only place this would really kind of become more complicated mechanically is if you were being fed blood and being hit with Lingering Kiss. Then it would become a little more complicated. I might actually have to write something in there about that, either as a sidebar or as an addendum to the power, that basically it could artificially enhance a blood bond, though never take it above its maximum level, through the Lingering Kiss. So someone who has a low level blood bond for you, if you Lingering Kiss them, suddenly it can jack that blood bond up. I think that would be a fair ruling. I think most STs would probably rule that the Lingering Kiss would temporarily boost the strength of your blood bond rating if you already have a blood bond with the vampire who's kissing you. All right. So every time a victim is bitten by the same vampire before their withdrawal symptoms subside, their blood bond rating will increase by 1 step to a maximum of 6. So a vampire with presence 5, if they continuously basically bit the same victim, a night here, a night there, while they still had withdrawal symptoms, they could not only would they give them the bonus again, and cancel their withdrawal penalty, but they would also increase their blood bond rating. Though never past the maximum of 6, which is the cap for all blood bond ratings. Perhaps I'll revisit this power and make the maximum lower, as I've done in the Sabbat the Black Hand, where Vinculum ratings usually cannot get a rating above 3, because they're kind of a distributed blood bond, unless you use certain Rite to temporarily boost them. So perhaps with Lingering Kiss, what I'll do is I'll set the maximum blood bond rating equal to the vampire's presence power. I think that would be a good I guess compromise, so that a vampire with a very high powerful level of presence could form very powerful bonds with the power. All right. So a victim that still has a blood bond inflicted by this power after the withdrawal symptoms subside will continue. Okay, I worded that poorly, but basically, a blood bond inflicted by this power after their withdrawal symptoms subside will continue to lose 1 level of blood bond over the same number of nights. All right, so though a victim that still has a blood bond inflicted by this power after the withdrawal symptoms subside will continue to lose 1 level of blood bond over the same number of nights. I don't think I would say though there. I would mess with that a little bit to get it a little clearer wording, but the basic concept is that basically, even after your withdrawal symptoms subside, that blood bond will, if your blood bond was higher than level 1, let's say you had a level 2 blood bond from this power, and you're suffering the withdrawal because you were bitten twice during so you're bitten the first night and you were bitten again the second night. Okay, So it's the third night now, and technically the first night of your kind of renewed withdrawal symptoms. Your blood bond level is actually level 2. So what would happen is after the withdrawal symptoms subsided, let's say they had level 2 presence as before, so after 2 nights of withdrawal, your withdrawal would go away on the third night, and your blood bond would decrease to level 1. All right, so you'd still have that level 1 blood bond feeling to the person who lingering kissed you. You just wouldn't have the withdrawal effects. And that level 1 blood bond would linger for the same number of nights. So in this case, they had presence 2, so 2 more nights on top of that. So a person with a lot of presence who bit you a bunch of times in a week could, you could really be jonesing for that person for quite a while in a sense. You wouldn't have the like withdrawal shaky aches for them, but deep inside you, you would feel an affection for them, like the blood bond. All right. So mortals that have a blood bond inflicted by this power can be summoned by the vampire. This is kind of a kicker I put in there to make it something interesting for the user of this power, beyond just kind of some kind of boost power in a sense. The like, why would a user, is it really worth it to bite people to give them +2 dice? Is it really worth it to just give them like a level 1, level 2 blood bond or whatever, and then they're kind of like shaking and acting weird the rest of the week? Like, is that really what is that really it? Is that really worth it? So I wanted something where it actually is of use to have these people, thinking of you in a sense, or kind of supernaturally, metaphysically bonded to you through this power. And so I put this little kicker in for mortal victims. So mortals that have a blood bond inflicted by this power can be summoned by the vampire who bit them once per night. This requires a rouse check by the vampire, and the mortal must make a willpower test with a difficulty equal to the blood bond rating to resist. So actually having those higher blood bond ratings is useful in that way. Withdrawal dice penalties apply to this roll, so if you're hitting them in that initial stage, it's more likely that they're going to come. And successfully resisting this summons will immediately reduce the mortal's blood bond rating by 1, and their withdrawal penalties will subside. Mortals cannot be summoned beyond the confines of a city or metro area by this power. So built into it is also a way for them to shake off the withdrawal and the blood bond, or part of the blood bond in there. So you can try to, really exploit the power and what you've inflicted on these mortal victims, like, come to me. But that also risks the fact that they'll no longer come to you. And in some ways, maybe that would be a way to kind of get rid of the negative effects. Perhaps you have a ghoul or something like that you've used this power on, and you're gonna use this, you're gonna use this in hopes, and like tell them not to come. You're gonna call them up first and be like, okay, I'm gonna summon you, but don't come to me. And then you summon them to like just, hopefully they'll fail the roll and eliminate the penalties or whatever. But of course, that's probably not going to work on a longer term ghoul, simply because of the way the blood bond works. They're going to be conflicted on whether to come to you or not. Like, you verbally ordered them not to come, let's say, or maybe even dominated them, but now you're using this power, and so I would say that their blood bond rating, depending upon how the power was used or worded, their blood bond rating that they have for you just as a ghoul might come into play there, act as a penalty, or increase the difficulty even. I could play around with the wording with that mechanically, but this power is already too goddamn long. So when used on a vampire, this power risks blood bonding the user if they drink blood from the victim's vein while biting them. Obviously I had to mention that. Mortals afflicted by this power gain none of the benefits of being a ghoul, okay, unless they are also fed blood from the vampire's vein, okay. I have to make that clear. And then unbondable or bond-resistant vampires are affected by this power normally, as the blood bond it forms is a supernatural facsimile created through emotional manipulation and the ecstatic bliss of the kiss. Vampires whose bite is incapable of performing the kiss cannot learn this power. So that's really what I would say is the limit. If you are a vampire for whatever reason, you have a flaw, perhaps you're clan bane like the old school Giovanni, Um, you don't inflict the kiss. Your bite is like super painful or terrible or poisons people. Who knows? Um, if that's the fact that you don't have a natural kiss to your bite, then that I'd say is a pretty good place to limit the power. If anybody can't learn that power, it's them. And as far as those who are unbondable or bond resistant, really the interplay there is that unbondable or bond resistant doesn't protect you from the blood bonds this power forms. I think that's an interesting interplay. It's not really necessary. I feel like that's a line I could remove and just let STs decide on their own if they want it to work that way. I think that's fine. Perhaps there might be other kind of mechanical tidbits that might find more useful to address than that, and so I might just remove that line just so I have more room in this beast of a power description. This is probably one of the longest powers I've written and has so many moving parts as well. I feel it works, but if I was to design this power from scratch, I think I would probably have less moving parts. I guess that's the way I would do it. I like the addition of the blood bond here as part of the power, but to be honest, I might remove that because the more I think about it, the less I feel it adds a lot to the power. I feel like if I make everything kick off of just the withdrawal symptoms, perhaps make the withdrawal symptoms longer somehow, that might be more interesting. And that could be part of the, lingering process. Perhaps I could make the penalty basically reduced by one step every presence number of days. Therefore, at a baseline, it would be a -2 penalty for 2 days, then a -1 penalty for the third and fourth day, and then it would be gone the fifth day. That might be a better way to do it, and might be a little clearer. I could remove the blood bond aspect so that people don't have to worry about, all that kind of finagly stuff, I guess, on some level. It would mean that at presence 5, the withdrawal symptoms would last in total 10 days, a -2 for 5 days, and then a -1 for 5 days. And then you'd basically free and clear the 11th day. And then if you were called by the vampire who bit you, then perhaps the difficulty, I could make the difficulty equal to their presence power, and the withdrawal dice penalties would apply to that roll, obviously, but we wouldn't have to worry about blood bond and all that stuff, and it would still clear the withdrawal, or perhaps it would knock the withdrawal down a step, so it would shorten the duration of the withdrawal, not remove it entirely. That might be a better way to do it. That way I don't have to skirt around this kind of artificial blood bond and all that. I remove kind of an extra step. So I think that could work. I think it's an interesting power. And I don't ever think it was too powerful, except possibly in its initial connotation, where I think it granted you bonus dice against that person equal to your presence level, as long as they were thinking about you or some such. And I think it boosted them with a bunch of bonus dice, and it would equal to half your presence level. I don't remember. I remember the wording was really finicky, and it kind of just did too much, and I feel this kind of does too much. So I might play with it a little more. If I can find a way to basically shorten it down to basically half this many words, possibly by removing that blood bond section, removing how the withdrawal works a little bit, that could be of interest. So it's not perfect. I think it's an interesting first crack. I doubt an editor would look at this power and not have some notes, especially I feel there's some ways it's written which are not clear or my best work. But I think for a quick jotting down, finagling of stuff, it's a good start. It's interesting, kind of maybe if that's of interest, showing my process. I've got a little time left, so I'm actually going to show you the thirst dice, which I said is a mechanic that we're using in the Ivory Tower playing the Camarilla. Basically, it's a concept of, I guess, kind of a bestial hunger. Usually, these thirst dice are added to your rolls or granted to you or convert your hunger dice into thirst dice by powers of animalism, by certain compulsions, by certain merits or certain situations, that you have, built your character around in a sense. So it's kind of the concept of your hunger deepening, your beast kind of awakening. So even a level of hunger that you kind of think of as manageable suddenly becomes dangerous. And that a level of hunger that is dangerous suddenly becomes explosive. I feel, and the reason we kind of introduced that in the Camarilla book, as opposed to, like, say, the Sabbat book, is that in the Sabbat book, and I think that it can be used in a Sabbat context, and I think in a Sabbat context, it would mostly be seen as a net positive. And, I mean, to be quite honest, we didn't really have this concept when we were writing the Sabbat book. Maybe if we hadn't wrote the Sabbat book in, 3.5 months, 4 months, it would have occurred to us. But we have it now. In a Camarilla game, it could be very interesting because you're supposed to be in control of yourself. That kind of letting out the beast is really frowned upon in the Camarilla. And powers that manipulate the beast in ways to make the beast more dangerous are really skirting a line that the Camarilla is comfortable with. So we felt having a mechanic where it would actually be beneficial to have to be walking around with a lot more hunger than you would usually do as a vampire would be interesting. And the powers that give you thirst dice, that's usually just part of the power. They either convert all your hunger dice into thirst dice, or they give you bonus thirst dice, like Lingering Kiss does. They do one of those two things, and they do something else. I think one of them lets you cancel a frenzy or something like that, and I think another one of them has something to do with potence or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head, nor do I want to spoil them here when they're not polished. But basically, the concept is that these powers would then interact with each other, so that you could kind of build a character if you wanted to. If you're, a mechanics nerd like I am, if you wanted to build a character that really exploited the thirst dice mechanic to its highest avails. There's even a predator type, which is actually in the Camarilla preview. There's a predator type we talk about. Oh, there's no bookmarks. Great. Called where are you? Here we go. So we have a predator type called Glutton. Okay, that's not what I want. There we go. So we have a predator type called Glutton in the Camarilla. The Ivory Tower. It's a new predator type. I mean, these aren't finalized. They're actually already going through changes. So don't take the mechanics 100% at will. But basically, the concept of the Glutton is a vampire who really kind of gets off on gorging themselves. Like, they basically hold off on feeding until they're desperately hungry, until their beast is screaming. So they don't want to eat until they're almost starving. And then when they do eat, they gorge themselves to the point of bursting, basically, right? So they and also they can't get the herd to merit because they are built in with the obvious predator flaw. So that makes for a pretty interesting character. Also, a character like this who had the herd merit would basically be constantly losing that herd merit and rebuying it as they tore through their herd, because chances are at those levels of hunger they would be hunger frenzying pretty regularly. So that kind of playing with hunger and all that we thought was interesting. And we wanted to reward characters walking around with a lot of hunger because that would also create interesting role playing and story experiences. Um, though, as always, I think that it's really up to the ST to moderate what he wants to bring into his story. A character who's a glutton and it really leans into all the thirst dice mechanics could be. Oh, all right. I have to take off soon. Could be a bit more chaotic than all STs want in their game. They may not want someone who's kind of skirting on this edge. Not really on the edge of humanity, but on the edge of basically losing it, especially around mortals. And of course, the Glutton's special ability, their kicker with their Predator type, something we kind of try to add to all Predator types to give them a little something more than just a unique package of merits and flaws. We want to give them something that really personifies what the benefit of this Predator type is. And for the Glutton, it's that as long as your hunger is less than 5, which hopefully that's most, if not all the time, attempts to determine your hunger always give the impression that you are fully satiated. So they have basically perfected the mask of not being hungry. So they are walking around like desperate for blood most of the time, unless they've just, torn through an apartment building to feed or some such. Desperate for blood, but the facade, the mask they wear around others is that, I'm fine, I'm set, I'm all full. Don't have to worry about me. So for thirst dice, mechanically, basically the way we did it is we took some of the concept from rage dice, but we didn't want to use rage dice as they were because there's some issues there, not mechanically really, but with their integration with Vampire. You can't just add rage dice to Vampire the Masquerade and call it a day. For various reasons, because you have to be considerate of people who, one, have custom vampire dice, right? They bought the dice that don't have numbers on them. They just have, onks and, stars and stuff on them and like little skulls. You have to be considerate of people who use virtual tabletops in their game. Like we have converted the Black Hand playing the Sabbat into a virtual tabletop version, I believe, for the Foundry. So, someone was kind enough to do it for us out of the blue for free. They just came to us and were like, hey, I converted the whole book to the Foundry. Use it for my games. Go ahead and use it themselves. And we credited them and all that. And I actually put them up for in any after they did that under their name. Because I thought it was really incredible. So the Black Hand playing the Sabbat has a virtual tabletop version. You can find it on the Storyteller's Vault and use it on the Foundry. And as far as I know, it works. It actually, if you already own the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, you can just download it for free. And there's a version of the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, if you don't have it, that comes with it as part of the PDF or whatever. But if you already own the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, I think it's a bundle. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. But the intention is that it's free if you already own the book. So it's on the Storyteller's Vault. Enjoy. So people are using virtual tabletops. You basically have to come up with a mechanic that if it's emulating Rage Dice in some way, which this is, it still has to use the dice that vampire players use. And vampire player dice do not have, brutal result marks on the hunger dice. So we had to use the hunger dice that exist, which has the skull in the ones place. And it has the successes on the higher levels. And then, of course, it has the messy critical onk at the very top at the tens place. So knowing that, we built the thirst dice with that in mind. Where basically, in certain situations, the skull, the bestial result, as it were, is a 10. It counts as a potential messy crit roll, right? So, thirst dice. Some powers and abilities grant bonus thirst dice and or convert your hunger dice into thirst dice. These dice work the same as hunger dice when rolled, except when they roll a 1, which is called a bestial result. Rolling a bestial result is treated as a bestial failure if not enough successes are rolled on the test. Also, a bestial result causes the test to fail even if enough successes were rolled, usually with something being damaged in the process, except in cases where the purpose of the roll was to feed, injure, oppress, or wound. In those cases, the bestial results are instead treated as a 10 on the hunger die, increasing the chance of a messy critical. Thirst die results cannot be rolled with willpower. A messy critical, or bestial failure with thirst dice also reveals the vampire's current hunger rating to all other vampires nearby. So, it basically creates kind of a swingy situation where if you are trying to attempt something while you have thirst dice on you, and very rarely are your hunger dice being turned into thirst dice or being added to your pool list, or your thirst dice are being added to your pool without your consent. That there are some things that we have in there where I guess potentially you could get thirst dice and not want them. But usually if you have thirst dice, it's because you've chosen to have thirst dice on you. So when you're rolling with thirst dice, if you're trying to do something that is not, bestial, if you're not trying to break something, feed something, cow somebody, put someone in their place, or hurt someone physically or emotionally, then those thirst dice are going to work against you. You could roll a bunch of successes trying to, soothe your touchstone. Like, oh, it's going to be okay. But if you've got some thirst dice on you, it doesn't matter how many successes you roll, you're going to get a bestial failure. Your beast is going to come out. You're even that little crack in hunger is enough for the beast to come out when you've got thirst dice. So I think that's it's pretty interesting mechanically. I hope there's not some glaring flaw I'm unaware of. Who knows? I think rage dice, for the most part, are interesting. They work. I have some quibbles with Werewolf the Apocalypse here and there. I wrote for the game, but I really wasn't involved in the mechanical side too much. Like, I wrote some gifts and tribal stuff and, touchstone stuff and actually kinfolk and past life stuff that's not really in the book. But we had a very interesting concept of how touchstones could be used and how kinfolk and past lives could interact with that in Werewolf the Apocalypse. But that thematically was maybe out of range of what the game wanted to do. Which is fine, You pay for the words you write, not for the words that get in the book. So that's fine by me. So I have to go. I spent a lot of time talking about Lingering Kiss and Thirst Dice. I talked even about how I would change Lingering Kiss in a way that would be interesting beyond like what I have here. So I'm going to make a quick note of some of the things I thought would be a good way to fix this. Make the withdrawal step by step. Okay. See you around, Gord. It was good seeing you. Thanks for stopping by. Lingering Kiss is a tough nut to crack if you want to stay true to the author's design, which personally is important to me. Whoever wrote Lingering Kiss had a certain something in mind. I'd like to try and capture that. Maybe I'm not talented enough or imaginative or creative enough to do that, to capture it the way they want. It might be beyond my abilities. And therefore, I will probably have to slim it down, change it in ways where I feel the essence, the soul of the power is still there, even if it doesn't hit all the beats the original author obviously wanted, which is fine. Really, playability, ease of use, those are much more important than hitting all the beats you want to hit with something. Sometimes stuff has to be left on the floor, and that's okay. That's okay. It's better to get basically what you want out there. I think that's very important. Than just to tinker with something until it's perfect and no one ever sees it. That is, I think that's a disservice to you as a creative person, really. You don't have to share your art, in a sense, to be an artist or be a creative person or be a writer or whatnot, but I feel it really improves your process. I feel it's very satisfying, and it'll improve you as an artist and a creative person to, get your work out there, one way or the other. Even if it's just amongst friends or other creatives, you don't have to sell it for money. But I think it really improves things, and for you, not just the world. Though it may improve the world too. You never know. Um, so I wouldn't let the kind of finagling with all the little details, getting this exactly the way it was originally intended, to deter me. I will get it in a way that works and that works for play. That's the most important thing. If Lingering Kiss just sits on the page and it never gets used in a game, then I would consider that a failure, personally, as a game writer. Yeah, I want to create powers that don't necessarily have to be the most powerful power, but I want it to have a game use and a use that fulfills some player fantasy or some story element. All right. Well, that is it for me. I'm heading out yet again. Praise Kane, and I will see everyone. I think Monday I'm streaming again in the morning, usually 10 a.m. I may start streaming earlier than that come the new year, depending upon people's schedules and interest. 10 a.m. works pretty well for me for my schedule, but I don't know what's to come. Who knows? So I'll see you. Don't let the ancients get you down.